So black men must have good and healthy eating habits. I think we really don't understand what it means to be healthy a lot of the times in the black community because we don't really have a good, accurate representation or example of somebody who's healthy in the black community, and let alone anybody that advocates for that. And I'm not a guy just sitting here and saying that, okay, everybody is just unhealthy and not trying. But the thing that I'm trying to emphasize is that we need to, obviously start having better eating habits, eating more fruits and vegetables, making sure we're not like gluttonous or anything like that. But more importantly, we need to teach this to the younger generation. You need to raise your kids like that, and you need to practice that yourself because that's something that's going to benefit everybody. And one thing that I see that it's just very neglected and there's no structure around it, which means that if you grew up eating bad and then you have a child, they're gonna grow up eating bad because you never really taught them. And in a lot of ways, they're just gonna copy you. They're just gonna do what you're gonna do. They're gonna eat the food that you have around that you eat. And if you eat bad, then they're gonna eat bad. If you eat healthy and that's all you do, that's all you eat, your kids are gonna grow up eating healthy. And a lot of men don't really try to prioritize that and talk about that. We can talk about a million different things about, improving our community, improving ourselves. But I think one thing that has to be prioritized is good eating habits, even more than working out, even more than anything when it comes to your physical health. What you eat is very, very important. And I think we'll see a lot more people in our communities live longer. They'll have a higher quality of life as they get older. And even when they're younger, it's just a healthy thing to do, a healthy thing to practice. And we have to start looking at all of what we can do to improve ourselves. And that's one thing that in my community that I'm making, that's something we're going to talk about, and that's something we're going to practice. And it's something that has to be prioritized because your physical health is something that's extremely important. It's extremely important. And so many times we can talk about, different things. We can tackle different problems in our life, but your health is one that has to be prioritized because I've heard the saying before, you can have a million different problems, but if you have a health problem, that's the only problem you're going to be focused on, right? And I'm not talking about trying to do things you can't control. Obviously, we all know it's certain things we can't control, but I do think black men have to be responsible for advocating for this, for being a good example of this, and really pushing that forward, not only to other black men, but to the black community as a whole, because that's the community that I'm focused on, because that's who I am. I am a black man. And there's just so many things that we would try to see, that it's so many things that we'll see as problems in our community, but a lot of people won't see that as a problem, but that is a huge problem, right? And it starts with, raising our kids and the younger generation, bringing them up having good eating habits. But we have to be good examples and we have to practice that because that's the only way that they're going to truly follow it, right? It's in the same way when you see, like, growing up, for example, you will see your parent might say, oh, you better not cuss, but then they'll cuss all day in front of you, right? And that's just how it is. And then you can't really expect your child to do something that you're trying to preach to your child and tell them you shouldn't do this, but then the next minute they're going to catch you doing the same thing you're telling them not to do. So when you're a kid, if you if you're a child or you're in a part of the younger generation, or even you're a person that's teaching and you're trying to guide the younger generation, it's important to be a good example and to make sure you advocate for things, because it is good to tell your kids not to do this and not to do that. That's not the problem, but that's not the solution to the problem either. The solution to the problem is what they see you do and how they see you react and how they see you carry yourself. So it's in the same way, you know, and that's one reason why I know I have to go even deeper into, eating better, because I still struggle with that as well at times. and have problem eating bad and everything like that. But I just laid out a perfect example. You can't really, if you a person that cuss all the time and you have a child and then you catch your child cussing and you tell them to not cuss and then you cuss right in front of them again, you're not being a good example, because now they see you doing it and it's like, why they telling me not to do it and they doing it, right? So if you're going to tell somebody not to do something, make sure you're not doing it, as far as when it comes to being a good example, right? And you should never be a person that, even if you are struggling, don't go against, like, don't just say, oh, I can't tell somebody not to do something. If you see a child doing something wrong, obviously tell them not to do that. But keep in mind that being a good example is an important thing. And that's what really pushes me and drives me to, you know, try to do better in life and be a good example and stuff, because your word doesn't matter if the actions don't line up. And we all know that. But when we have a community of men coming together, we're talking about this, we're helping each other, we're sharpening each other, and then we have days where we come together, we eat good food and stuff. Because that's one thing that I'm going to have a part of my real life community of black men coming together. We're going to talk about these things and prioritize these things, because this is your body, your health. This is your physical existence that we're talking about. And that's something that has to be taken care of outside of a religious context in general. You don't want to die early. You don't want to die. You don't want to not take care of your body, you know. So these are just the things that need to be prioritized. And if they're not prioritized, we're not at our strongest. We can only be at our strongest if we truly are at our strongest, not just in mentality, but in every aspect: mentally, spiritually, physically, and financially, because that's also a very important thing. But I would say your health is something that surpasses a lot of that. Your health is something that you're going to always need to prioritize, because if you don't, you're going to be at a weakened state where like a unhealthy body produces an unhealthy mind, and then it produces an unhealthy spirit in a lot of ways. So that's the thing we have to understand. And the biggest thing that we have to understand when it comes to this is that we can't pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and then think, boom, I'm just gonna be like, something's gonna save me from myself, when really you have to save yourself from yourself. So that's the real key. And that's pretty much all I got to say. But yeah, peace out.